We're back with more Bob. He is, of course, editor-in-chief here at The Hill. So Jay Inslee just dropped out of the presidential race.
Yep.
Hickenlooper had already dropped out of the presidential race. Being a governor ain't what it used to be.
Yeah, Steve Bullock has done better, but
he's still there.
He's still there. Yeah, he hasn't dropped out. But Inslee was really a one-issue candidate, and that was climate change. And I think it's difficult to be a one-issue climate. Now, I think governors used to be kind of the hot ticket: George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
But it's less so now. And we did a story and talked to Howard Dean, and he said, well, being a governor helps you become, I think, a better governing possible president, but it doesn't make you a better candidate. And these senators are getting attention. I mean, Kamala Harris just got to the Senate, and now, you know, she's a top-tier candidate. But the governors really have fizzled, failed to really catch on. And I think partly is because the news is coming out of Washington, Washington, D.C.
That's a good point.
And most normal people, most outsiders, have never heard of Inslee.
Right.
They've never heard of Bullock, Hickenlooper, who's now running for the Senate. So I think that's where they've struggled. And it's been, you know, somewhat surprising that not one of these guys has, you know, maybe could challenge Biden as the more centrist. And that's what Hickenlooper tried to do, but clearly failed to do.
But do you think it also has anything to do with voters just care less about records of success? They care less about experience. I mean, they don't necessarily want to hear about how governors compromised and, you know, put forward like real solutions.
No, that's a good point. I think you have to be entertaining, and these governors have not been entertaining. Some would argue they've been rather dull, and now it's all about a show. It's the Trump show every day, and I think Democrats want their own show, and they want someone who's going to fight back. And you also have to stand out in a crowded field. And honestly, if you're a white male candidate who doesn't have a lot of pizzazz, at least on a national level, it's difficult to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, Inslee's a perfect example. He has a very good record as governor.
Yeah.
You know, climate change is a very defining issue, and a lot of Democrats put it as their number one issue, especially a lot of young Democrats. This is their number one issue. And they see it not just as about like environmentalism, it's a sort of structural, fundamental, touches everything kind of an issue. But the other thing I think with him is you had other candidates, Bernie Sanders just out with his big climate change plan. You had other candidates who were just as good and willing to go just as far on his one issue.
Yes, and Biden was under fire from environmentalists. He released a plan that has generally gotten some good reviews. So yeah, other people were talking about. Now, obviously, Nancy Pelosi's been talking about this for the longest time. Now she's running for president, but Tom Steyer's in the race, and that's also his issue. So I do think you have to have more than one issue. You've got to have a strong slogan. Some of these slogans, we don't even know what the slogan is for these candidates. We knew it was for Trump in 2016. And it's just, you got to also raise money, and it's very difficult to raise money in a crowded field.
Yeah, well, that's the lifeblood right there. If you're not raising the money, you're not going to be able to keep going. You've got your eye on a speech today from Jerome Powell, Fed Reserve Chair. What are we expecting?
I tell you, he's got a tough job. Donald Trump has been tweeting at him repeatedly. Remember, this is the Trump nominee. He's gone after Powell publicly. He has blamed this recent slowdown, it seems, in the economy, possible recession, at least what economists are saying, maybe next year, maybe in 2021, on Powell and the rate. So all eyes are on Powell to see what he says about the economy. Is it strong? Is it weakening? What is he going to do on interest rates? And of course, the president is going to be faced with a decision if he continues to be frustrated with Powell. Does he fire Powell? And Powell says he can't be fired because the Fed is independent.
Right.
This could be a very interesting 2020 question, and when we interviewed Trump, he said, yeah, I got the power to do it, and he clearly is thinking about it.
Yeah, and I mean, he wouldn't be the first president to be frustrated with the Fed and be speaking out against some of the Federal Reserve chairmen and those types of things, but he would be the first one. Would he be the first one to fire?
He would be, you're right, Lauren.
Really?
Other presidents have pressed their Fed chiefs, including President Nixon, but they have never gone to the point where they fired them. And then there has been more. Trump doesn't respect the independence of the Fed. That is clear. Now, other former Fed officials say, you know, the politicians have to back away after they nominate. It's weird because you're nominating somebody by the president, and then you've got to be neutral. And that's the same way for the FBI. We've seen the politicization of the FBI and the Department of Justice over the years, even back in the Obama administration. So, listen, I think this is going to be a very difficult run for Powell. His speech today is one of the most important speeches of the year for the economy.
Interesting. I mean, if there's one thing that this president is good at, it is scapegoating other people for his failures.
Yes.
And politically, he needs
Yes.
to. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, you and I, here before. Everybody assumes that a downturn would be bad for Trump, and that is certainly the most likely outcome. That's
Sure.
conventional wisdom. That's the way it's worked in the past. This guy, though, the rules don't always apply. I mean, he thrives on chaos. He thrives on
True.
making other people the enemy, on saying, I'm the only one who can save us.
Maybe he's just challenging the norm, and he wants to shake things
definitely-
up, and it's not going the way, everybody else is entrenched in more traditional viewpoints on how this needs to work, and he wants to throw the playbook out.
Trump has broken all the rules.
He's definitely throwing the playbook out. There's
But
no doubt about that.
At the convention next year, Republicans want to say, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And if we are headed towards a recession, it's going to be very hard to make that argument. So I do think that even though you never know in politics, especially in the Trump era, if he loses the economy, he is in big trouble.
Yeah, well, Powell today auditioning for the role of scapegoat
Yes.
for
Yes,
economic troubles. We'll keep our eye on that. Thank you, Bob. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Happy weekend. Next up on Rising, to quote Freddie Mercury, is this the real life or is this just fantasy?
Astrophysicist Dr. Joe Pest weighs in on the possibility that we're all just living inside a computer simulation when Rising continues.